They told us it was a steal, an old, abandoned hospital on the edge of a quiet Midwestern town, waiting to be turned into something new. Emma saw charm in the crumbling walls, history behind the broken windows. I saw opportunity. Together, we saw a future. The locals wouldn't talk much about it. The real estate agent barely made eye contact when handing us the keys. "If you hear anything strange," he said with a dry chuckle, "just remember it's an old building." They creak. We didn't think twice. Young, ambitious, and a little reckless. We planned to renovate the place into a boutique hotel, a fresh start, a shared dream. But on the first night, as the wind howled through the cracked halls and shadows flickered under closed doors, we realized the building wasn't as empty as it seemed. Something was waiting, watching, remembering. The morning we arrived in Ashfield, the sky was dull and overcast, the kind of gray that made everything feel slower, heavier. The town was small, one of those blink and you miss it places that barely existed on the map. Rows of aging houses lined the streets like forgotten memories, and the few shops we passed looked like they hadn't had customers in weeks. Emma held my hand tightly as we drove down the main road. "It's quiet," she said, half smiling. "Peaceful," I replied, though something about the silence felt unnatural, like the town had stopped breathing. We followed the GPS to the hospital, which stood on the outskirts like an exiled monument. Ashfield Regional Medical Center. Its faded sign read, half the letters were gone. The building itself was massive for stories of crumbling brick and shattered windows, wrapped in creeping ivy and shadows. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown. Nature had begun to take it back. We got out of the car, staring up at our new project. Just glass shards and dust, probably the wind. We unlocked the front entrance to tall, rusted metal doors that groaned open like they were waking from a long sleep. The main lobby was dark. Even in daylight, the floor was littered with debris, old papers, cracked tiles, leaves blown in through broken windows. A rusted wheelchair stood in the corner like it had been waiting. Emma turned on her flashlight and pointed it down the hall. "This place gives me the creeps," she said with a nervous laugh. "Good thing we don't believe in ghosts." But as we stepped inside, the heavy air seemed to thicken. It wasn't just the smell of decay, it was something else. A presence, like the building itself, was watching us. We started our walk through. The layout was simple enough, an L-shaped design with long, echoing corridors, rooms on either side, most stripped bare. Some still had beds, others were completely hollow. Nothing but silence and the distant drip of water. "Old pipes," I said, though my voice didn't sound convincing even to me. We continued exploring, documenting everything we'd need for renovations. The idea was to turn this relic into a boutique hotel, vintage charm, a hint of history, a unique experience for travelers. But standing there, in the long-forgotten halls, I realized how insane it sounded. This wasn't a blank canvas, it was a grave. We reached what used to be the pediatric wing. The walls were painted with faded murals, cartoon animals, smiling suns, balloons peeling off with time. A child's stuffed toy lay in the corner, moldy and half-torn. "Do you think they left everything behind?" Emma asked, crouching to pick up a small wooden block. "Or they ran out of time." She frowned at me. "Sorry, that came out darker than I meant." We checked the old nurse's station, found a few scattered files. Most were water-damaged beyond saving. Something about it felt wrong. "Let's check it out tomorrow," I said quickly, turning back. "We've seen enough for today." Emma hesitated, then nodded. We locked up and returned to the car. The strange door marked "Authorized Personnel Only" was closed again. We hadn't touched it since yesterday. I walked toward it cautiously and tested the handle. Locked. "I swear it was open yesterday." Emma whispered. "It was." She tried to peer through the tiny window embedded in the steel, but it was blacked out with grime. "Do we have a key?" "Nope, but I brought tools." I pulled out a pry bar and hammer from the backpack. It felt a little wrong to force our way in, But then again, we owned the place now or were about to, with a few loud cracks and groans. The old mechanism gave way, the door creaked open, revealing the stairwell again, still dark, still colder than the rest of the building. "This has to be the way to the basement," I said. "Or something worse," Emma muttered. We descended slowly, flashlights sweeping the narrow steps. The walls here were lined with cracked white tile, and the air was heavy with mildew and rust. Neither could I. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that black door. I heard the knock, slow, patient, like it had all the time in the world. And in my dreams, I saw her behind the door, waiting. Her face was drawn, her eyes were black pits, and her mouth never moved, but I could hear her whispering to me. "Why did you come back?" The lobby was the same as before, dusty, decayed, but it was the sound that struck me. Or the lack of it, the silence was to complete. No creaking pipes, no whine through broken windows. Just stillness, like the building was holding its breath. Emma wandered toward the old reception desk to get a few pictures. I stayed back, scanning the halls. That's when I heard it, a whisper. So faint, I thought it was in my head, a single word, drawn out, echoing. "Ryan." I turned fast. "Emma." She looked up from her phone. "What, did you say something?" "No." I walked toward the hallway where I thought I'd heard it. My footsteps echoed. The light from my flashlight seemed dimmer here, swallowed by the walls. "Ryan." I froze. It was clearer now. Coming from one of the rooms to my right, my name spoken softly, but not kindly. It felt intimate, like something that already knew me. I opened the door slowly. The room was empty. Just an old examination table and a cracked sink. The window was boarded shut. But on the far wall, something new had appeared. Scratches. They hadn't been there before, then. Claw-like lines carved into the paint, 5 of them, deep and deliberate, stretching from floor to ceiling. Emma walked in behind me, saw them, and went pale. "What the hell?" "I don't know." We backed out and closed the door. I marked it mentally, room 112. Back in the hallway, the whispering began again, not just one voice, now many. Soft, layered, moving, we stood still, listening. The voices seemed to drift through the walls, running just beneath the surface like something alive. I pressed my ear to the wall beside me. For a moment, nothing, then they never left. "Still here. Let me out. Help me." "He's watching." I stumbled back, nearly dropping my flashlight. Emma was shaking. "We need to go." We practically ran out of the building, our footsteps echoing behind us like a stampede. As I pulled the doors shut behind us, I saw movement at the end of the hallway. A shadow, tall and thin, just standing there. Then it was gone. That night, the whispering followed me home. I heard it as I brushed my teeth. In the hum of the bathroom fan, I swore I heard voices. I heard it in the hallway as I passed the dark bedroom door. We decided to install motion cameras inside the hospital. If we were going crazy, fine, but we needed proof. We brought 6 cameras and installed them in different parts of the first floor, room 112, the lobby, the main hallway, and 2 corners of the pediatric wing. We left them running and didn't stay long. That night, we reviewed the footage on my laptop. Most of it was uneventful, dust floating, light shifting, the usual eerie stillness. But then came the clip from room 112. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the camera glitched just for a second. Then something moved across the far wall. It wasn't a shadow. It was a hand long, pale fingers dragging slowly across the scratched paint. Just the hand, no arm, no body. Just a disembodied hand sliding into frame, then out again. Emma gasped, but it was the audio that chilled us most. I enhanced the sound and boosted the gain, beneath the static, layered in the hiss. We heard whispering again, but this time it wasn't random. It was our names over and over: Emma, Ryan, Emma, Ryan. And then, at the very end, one final whisper clear, close to close. Room 9 is open. That night, after hours of unpacking boxes and setting up furniture under dim lantern light, Lauren stood in what used to be the hospital's main corridor, barefoot and quiet. The floor, even after all their sweeping and scrubbing, still carried a sticky echo like something had soaked deep into the tile and never left. The hall was longer than it seemed during the day. It always felt longer at night, more hollow. The wind outside howled softly, pushing through broken panes above the emergency exit door. It made the exit sign flicker on, off, on again. The red light painted Lauren's face in pulses of warning. She rubbed her arms, though the air wasn't particularly cold. Just off Ethan, she called gently. Though she knew he was upstairs working on the bedroom, there was no response. Only silence and the low hum of the old place settling. But beneath that hum, a new sound stirred a dragging. Almost deliberate, Lauren turned back toward the stairwell and paused. A shape, it wasn't there a second ago. Something stood at the far end of the corridor, near the nurse station window, a tall, dark figure, still, too still, not human stillness but the stillness of something waiting, watching. She blinked, and it was gone except for the faintest afterimage burned into her vision. She felt her heart thunder, just shadows. Just the dark playing tricks, she whispered to herself, but the echo of her own voice sounded alien in the corridor. She rushed up the stairs. Gripping the dusty rail, her feet felt like they were wading through molasses by the time she reached the second floor. Ethan looked up from laying out sheets on their mattress. Everything okay? This whole place feels alive with echoes. They settled in for the night on their half-assembled bed frame, the walls around them bare and cracked. Lauren lay awake longer than Ethan. She watched the ceiling, tracing the outlines of old water damage and hairline fractures, and tried not to listen to the occasional creak or soft tap-tap-tap from somewhere within the hospital's bones. Then, sometime near 3 a.m., she heard the piano, one key, just one, pressed ... soft. Deliberate, the note hung in the air like a whisper that didn't want to die. There was no piano in the building. Not anymore. She sat up, her body rigid. The sound had come from downstairs. From the old lobby. She didn't wake Ethan, she just sat there, frozen in a silence that suddenly felt heavy. Her breath caught as a second note echoed upward, lower this time, a minor chord. And then silence again. She forced herself to lie back down and pull the blanket over her head like a child. She stayed that way until morning. They explored the basement the next day. Ethan had found an old blueprint of the hospital in the administrative office rolled tight in a metal tube behind a filing cabinet. According to this, there used to be an incinerator down there, he said, frowning, and a sub-basement. Lauren looked at him. What do you mean used to be? He shrugged. It's not on the renovation plans. No official records after 1982, just stops existing. Something about that didn't sit right. Hospitals didn't just erase sections of their structure, not without a reason. They took their flashlights and descended the crumbling basement stairwell. Mold clung to the walls, a scent of iron, mildew, and something faintly sour grew stronger with each step. In the far corner, behind an old laundry chute, they found it, a hidden door metal, rusted shut, with no knob, just a dented square panel beside it. Ethan shone the light over it. No lock, no hinge. Might have been sealed permanently. Lauren didn't like how the air felt down here, like it was watching them, holding its breath. They didn't open the door, not yet. But from that day on, Lauren began to hear things, whispers. Too faint to understand, footsteps pacing the corridor when Ethan was in the shower. The reflection of a nurse's cap gliding across a mirror, vanishing before she could turn. She started recording on her phone at night, placing it near the door. On the second night, the recording picked up breathing, not hers, not Ethan's. Low, wet, close to the phone, and at exactly 3:17 a.m., a whisper, a woman's voice, it said her name. I didn't sleep that night, even with Rachel curled up next to me, her soft breaths warming the side of my neck. I lay frozen, staring into the ceiling, counting the seconds between each creak in the wall. That shadow I had seen in the window, the one that ducked just as I turned, haunted me. But it wasn't just paranoia. There was a pressure in the air, like the whole hospital was breathing. And now I was starting to hear it, whispers. At first, I thought it was the pipes, that echoey metal rattle old buildings make when water is running. But we had no water, no plumbing, yet no electricity, other than the battery packs we brought for our phones and lamps. So what the hell was whispering inside the walls? The next morning, Rachel wanted to go into town to buy paint and supplies. She was cheerful to cheerful. I think she was trying to shake off what we'd seen. Maybe she was trying to shake it off for both of us. "You sure you don't want to come?" she asked, keys dangling in her hand. "No," I said, "I'll stay and clean the old nurse's station." She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and left. The beam revealed a narrow stairwell going straight down stone steps, no railing, just brick walls slick with mildew. It smelled like rot, like something had been buried. I shouldn't have gone down, but I did. Each step felt colder than the last. The air was thick. At one point I stopped and checked my flashlight. It flickered just once, but that was enough to make my heart stop. Halfway down, I heard it again, the whispering. This time it wasn't just sound, it was language, not English, not Spanish. Something older, more guttural, like someone choking on words. I pressed forward. At the bottom, the stairwell opened into a small room. It looked like a storage chamber. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars. Some were shattered, others were sealed with wax, containing murky liquids and what I swear were pieces of bone. In the center of the room was a metal table, and something lying on it. At first I thought it was a mannequin. The skin was pale, waxy, but it wasn't plastic. It was a body, wrapped in what looked like an old hospital gown, but not from any era I recognized. The chest wasn't rising or falling. The head was turned away from me. I should have run. Instead, I stepped closer. My hand was shaking so bad the flashlight's beam danced across the room, and that's when it moved. The head turned toward me, not fast, not jerky, just slow, deliberate, and I saw the face. Empty sockets, no eyes, skin stretched to tight over bone. Lips stitched closed with black thread, crusted with blood and time. I stumbled back, slamming into the wall, dropping my flashlight. The beam spun wildly, hitting the ceiling, the shelves, the table again. But the thing was gone. I didn't even hear it move, just gone. I grabbed the flashlight and ran. I didn't stop until I burst into daylight at the top of the stairs, slamming the door behind me, locking it from the outside with an old chain I found nearby. My breath was ragged, my hands covered in sweat. I sat against the wall for nearly an hour. When Rachel returned, she found me still sitting there. "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. I wanted to lie, to say I slipped, maybe passed out. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw something there, something like fear. Like maybe she already knew something was wrong with this place. "We need to leave," I whispered. Rachel didn't argue, but it was already too late. That night, the whispers came into our room. Not just through the walls, but from inside the vents, from beneath the floorboards, from the dark corners we couldn't see. And then Rachel began to talk in her sleep. In the same guttural language I had heard downstairs, the elevator clanked to a halt, its rusted doors creaking open to reveal a corridor blanketed in darkness. Thomas flicked his flashlight forward, and the beam caught a peeling sign above the archway ahead. "Morgue authorized personnel only." Emma stood frozen. "Are you sure we need to go in there?" Thomas swallowed. The blueprint showed a tunnel under the morgue. "Maybe it connects to the utility room. We can get out that way." The air was instantly colder here, and naturally so. Their breaths fogged up in the beam of the flashlight. The moment they stepped across the threshold, a distinct shift occurred in the air, like stepping into another realm. Time itself felt slower. Rows of metallic drawers lined the walls, each labeled with faded name tags. Most had fallen off. The scent of decay lingered, not fresh, but ancient, like something dead and undisturbed for decades. Thomas walked ahead, scanning for any access panel or stairs that might lead downward. Emma hesitated at the door, eyes fixed on the nearest body drawer. It was slightly ajar. Her voice trembled. His face was pale, eyes hollow, mouth twisted into an impossible grin. Emma grabbed Thomas's arm. "We're not alone." The man stepped forward. No sound, no footsteps. Thomas yanked Emma behind him. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure didn't speak. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a toe tag. He dropped it. It landed at Thomas's feet, face up. It read, and in that blackness, a voice, "One of you belongs here." Emma spun around. What does that mean? The real Thomas clutched her hand tighter. "Don't listen to it." Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut behind them, sealing them inside with the echo of finality. Alex lunged at the door, twisting the rusted handle, slamming his shoulder against the wood. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. The hinges screamed but held firm. Damn it. He cursed, his voice bouncing off the concrete walls like the cries of the damned. Emily stood frozen, eyes wide, flashlight trembling in her hand. "Did you hear that?" Alex paused. Silence. Then Dash whispers, soft, indistinct, like wind. But they were too rhythmic, too intentional. Not wind, not imagination, voices. Emily slowly turned in a circle, her light sweeping over broken gurneys, rusted for poles, scattered bones. Human, definitely human. A blackened wheelchair sat against the wall, wheels twitching faintly as though stirred by an unseen breeze. "Alex, they're talking to us." The voices grew louder, still unintelligible, but closer. Surrounding them, Alex grabbed Emily's hand. "We go forward, fast." They moved, flashlight beam cutting a narrow path through darkness so thick it seemed to move. Every few steps, they stumbled over debris, shards of glass, torn restraints, the occasional blood-stained doll. The hallway opened into what once might have been an operating room. Rusted scalpels and saws lay scattered around a cracked metal table. But what chilled them wasn't the tools, it was the patient still lying there. Or what remained. Its face had no features. Just skin stretched over a skull, sewn tightly shut, like someone had tried to erase its identity. The torso had been opened long ago, and something moved inside, a slithering beneath the skin. Emily backed away, gagging. "This place, this isn't just haunted. It's alive." Then something laughed. A horrible, childlike giggle that came from every direction at once. The lights flickered, once, twice, then went out. Pitch black. Alex screamed her name. "Emily." No answer. His flashlight flickered. He waved it frantically, nothing but swirling dust. "Emily." A flash, for a moment. The room reappeared and she was gone. Stage 8, skin and silence. The flashlight dimmed until only a dull orange glow remained, barely enough to see Alex's own trembling hands. His breath came in short, ragged bursts. The walls around him felt like they were closing in, narrowing, pulsating, alive. "Emily," he yelled again, voice cracking. Nothing, no echo this time. Only silence, then shuffle. He spun. In the far corner of the room, the faceless corpse on the surgical table sat up. Alex stumbled back, heart hammering against his ribcage. The body tilted its head, as if listening to something far away. Its sewn lips twitched. Then one thread snapped, another, and then the stitches split open with a sickening tear, revealing not a mouth, but an abyss, a void, a place without end. From that darkness, a voice emerged, her voice. "Alex, help me." He lunged forward, but the moment he did, the thing collapsed into dust, crumbling like old ash. The room twisted. The walls lengthening, stretching, lights flickered on and off in rapid bursts, each flicker revealing a new scene, like a flip book of nightmares. Emily standing in a corridor, eyes gouged out. Blood pouring from her mouth, Emily suspended from the ceiling by her arms, flayed open like a medical diagram. Emily on the floor, whispering backward Latin ... then total darkness. Alex dropped to his knees, dizzy, clutching his head. The whispers returned, but now they were clearer. A chant, over and over, in dozens of voices layered atop one another, sine carne. Sine ves sine anima, no flesh, no voice, no soul. Suddenly, a door creaked open behind him, light, real light. Not the sickly yellow of flickering bulbs, but daylight. Alex crawled toward it. Blind and desperate, he pushed through, and found himself inside a nursery. The room was pristine, white walls, blue and pink cribs. A mobile spun slowly overhead, playing a lullaby that made his blood run cold because it was the same tune Emily hummed when she couldn't sleep. In the center of the nursery was a crib. He staggered toward it and looked inside. Emily was there, no longer an adult, a baby. Her tiny eyes stared up at him, and blinking. Her mouth opened, and spoke in her adult voice. "You left me," Alex screamed, stumbling back into a rocking chair. The mobile spun faster, the lights shattered. The baby cried, and the sound warped into 1,000 shrieking voices. The floor split beneath him. He fell down until he hit concrete again. He was back in the hallway alone, but not for long. Because at the end of the corridor, Emily stood in the darkness. Not the baby, not a vision, but the real her. At least, he hoped, Emily. He asked, voice hoarse. She didn't answer. She turned, walked away. He followed. The door at the far end of the hallway groaned open, revealing a narrow, pitch-black stairwell that spiraled downward. Mason hesitated, his flashlight flickering again. "You sure about this?" he asked, voice strained. Emily nodded, though her hand trembled. "We've come this far. That ... thing is down there. I can feel it." The couple descended slowly, each step creaking beneath their weight. The deeper they went, the thicker the air became, muddy. Metallic, almost alive, the stone walls around them pulsed faintly, as if the hospital itself had a heartbeat. A faint humming noise echoed from below, not mechanical, but ... vocal. At the bottom, they found a massive steel door marked morgue, authorized personnel only. It had been forced open. Inside was a room colder than the outside air, lined with broken gurneys and blood-stained sheets. Empty body drawers hung ajar, the names of patients long dead etched into rusted tags. But something else caught their eyes, a circle of ash in the center of the floor, surrounded by waxy remnants of candles and a decaying goat skull with dark runes etched into its bone. Emily knelt, her fingers tracing the soot, a ritual. She whispered. This wasn't just a hospital. They were doing something down here. Suddenly, the morgue lights flickered on by themselves, cold, sterile light revealing blood smeared on the walls, shrieking and writhing just outside the circle's edge. The chant grew louder, painful, inside their heads. Then silence. The morgue door creaked open once more. Standing in the doorway was a figure in a white lab coat, but its face was smooth, no features, just skin stretched taut over bone. In one hand, it held a rusted surgical scalpel. In the other, a patient file with Emily and Mason's names written in blood-red ink. "I've been waiting for you," it rasped. The elevator doors groaned open. Cassandra gripped Daniel's hand tighter. Neither of them had pressed any buttons. It was as if the building itself decided they needed to go higher. "Wasn't this floor boarded up?" Daniel whispered. Stepping cautiously into the darkened hallway, "It was," Cassandra replied. "I remember the realtor saying this level was condemned. The hallway ahead was long. The floor warped and cracked like an old scar. Pale moonlight filtered through shattered windows, illuminating tattered gurneys, rusted for poles, and fragments of broken medical charts littering the ground. The air smelled of mildew, antiseptic, and something metallic, something like blood. Cassandra stepped on what she thought was a pile of debris. But when she looked down, it wasn't debris, it was old medical gowns, hundreds of them. Stained and folded as if stacked by an invisible hand, she stifled a scream. Daniel approached a door on the left, its placard faded but still legible. Ward for B isolation. He pushed it open slowly. Inside, the walls were covered in peeling paint and writing scratched in by fingernails. "Please let us out," he said, "we'd be cured." The babies never stopped crying. Cassandra backed away, a cold sweat soaking her spine. They ventured deeper, room by room. Everyone told a story. Broken cribs, restraint chairs, journals filled with the scribbled madness of long-dead patients. And then they heard it, the sound of something dragging. Not footsteps, not voices, a low, dragging noise, flesh against tile. "Run," Cassandra whispered. But Daniel didn't move, his eyes were wide. Behind her, Cassandra felt a presence, cold, heavy. She turned. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, nurse's uniform, blooded hands. A veil of shadow over her face. She pointed toward them. Suddenly, every light in the hallway flared to life. For a split second, they saw what was behind her, dozens of other patients crawling, screaming silently, eyeless sockets glowing faintly blue. The building moaned as they slammed through a pair of swinging doors, tumbling down a stairwell, breathless and bruised. They didn't stop until they hit the ground floor. The front doors were shut. The chain and padlock weren't just rusted, they were new. Someone or something had locked them in again. For the next few days, Claire and Adam moved like shadows within Mercy Hospital, avoiding the second floor entirely. The whispers had grown more frequent, sometimes soft like a breath behind the ear, sometimes urgent like a scream in the dark, and the eyes, they were always there, watching from behind cracks in the drywall, from air vents, from holes in the ceiling tiles. The words "surgical wing, authorized personnel" only flickering in the dying light of Emma's flashlight. It wasn't just the cold that made them shiver. The hallway was lined with operating rooms, each with cracked observation windows and rusted surgical lamps hanging like grotesque chandeliers. The silence was no longer empty, it pulsed. They could feel it. Emma paused outside one of the rooms. The number on the door was smeared, but through the glass they could make out movement, not shadow, not light movement. A figure was standing over the gurney inside. Emma tried to pull Alex away, but something else moved too in the corner of the room, something impossibly tall and thin, its face wrong, melted, eyeless. The door creaked open on its own. They froze. The lights dimmed. The hospital groaned. Suddenly, every monitor in the room lit up. Screaming faces flashed on the screens. Doctors, patients, nurses, all twisted in pain, in fear. A voice echoed, loud and guttural. "You were supposed to save us. You brought the pulse, now feed it." The doors slammed shut. The machines around them began to move, surgical arms extended, reaching for Jamie and Mark. Mark tried to pull Jamie away, but she was transfixed by the heart. "It's choosing," she whispered. "It needs a life to stay alive." Mark turned her, panic in his eyes. "No, we're not giving it anything." Jamie stared at the heart. It was slowing. Beep. Beep, beep, then silence. The power exploded around them. Darkness swallowed the room. And then another beat, stronger, deeper. Mark turned to run, but Jamie was no longer at his side. The light from the monitors returned, revealing her standing next to the table, eyes vacant, lips whispering something he couldn't hear. "Jamie," he called. She turned to him slowly. Her eyes were pitch black. "It needs a keeper," she said. The hospital shook violently. Mark backed away, but the surgical tools blocked his exit. He looked around desperately, but it was too late. Jamie was no longer Jamie. The pulse had chosen her, and now the hospital had its heart once more. If you're ever driving past a crumbling hospital in the dead of night and hear a faint beeping, Don't stop. Don't listen. And whatever you do, don't follow the sound of the pulse. Because some hearts should never beat again, and some places should stay forgotten.